I'm Kelsey Rice-Bogdan.
And I'm Hannah Field.
And we're here from Life Together. I'm the executive director, and
I'm a second-year fellow with Life Together, and I'm actually, my site placement is Pro Gente Connections, you just heard from.
So if you don't know Life Together is the diocese's young adult leadership and spiritual formation ministry. So we're about cultivating prayerful and prophetic leaders for the church and the world, and we do that in a lot of ways. Through our fellows' justice work in churches and nonprofits like Hannah's at Pro Gente, through training and spiritual formation, spiritual practices. But what you may not know about us is that we're also fundamentally, in ways, a faith community. And in community, Life Together moves from being a classroom experience or even a service here to a living experience of transformation for those who are involved with it. Now, community can be the ground for that kind of transformation, or sometimes community is the barrier, maybe, to transformation. One or two people are doing all the work, and when they burn out, the work just falls apart without them. Or groups are so dysfunctional that even when they manage to accomplish the mission they've set out to do, people come to really not like each other in the process. We're doing the work of justice, but we're not doing it in a just way. At Life Together, we've had those moments in community too. And in working through them, we've learned that how we work together can be the difference between transformation and dysfunction. We need intentional practices that will help us build up the relationships that are going to sustain our justice work and our justice commitments. So one of the practices that we use at Life Together is about how we learn from the work that we do. We consider ourselves a learning organization. And so at the end of each gathering together, we'll verbally evaluate how the day went. And a few years ago, we came to this point where feedback was becoming a problem, actually. It was being offered in really harsh, deconstructive ways that were fraying at the relationships that we had. I can remember actually being so upset after one session that I had to take a walk around the block, holding back tears at what had been said. A few days later, I went back to my coworker and said, "We have got to figure out a better way to do this." And so we started having conversations. What we learned, I believe, is key to what makes our process actually work today. And I think is also key to any community that's trying to grow more deeply in mission. And it was this simple question: how do we keep drawing our process closer to our values? Keep drawing process closer to values. Taking this question seriously led us to rethink the way that we end our gatherings every time we're together. And more importantly, it helped us become better at building up discipleship in our justice work. So today, Hannah and I want to share with you one of those practices that we use, that we call praxis and evaluation, that's become really powerful for us in building up our community and building relationships and trust with one another. We hope that it'll offer a way for your community to draw your processes closer to your values as well and build stronger relationships, whether that's on a mission team or the altar guild or a Bible study or any other group in your church that's seeking to be more deeply connected in mission.
So as Kelsey described, at Life Together, it became necessary to move beyond critique to something deeper. And for us, that was praxis. That was how we did that. We truly think of praxis as a spiritual practice, something that brings us closer to God. Some of you may be familiar with the daily examen that comes out of Ignatian spirituality. In the daily examen, you prayerfully meditate on your actions throughout the day, determining where you saw God. Praxis is a similar practice to the daily examen, allowing time for personal reflection on your actions during a meeting, workshop, or a whole day. At Life Together, we add the framework of our community values. We ask fellows to reflect on their own actions and the group's collective actions and how those actions aligned or didn't align with our values. We have many different values at Life Together. I'll just share a couple here with you today. Seeing God and God's belovedness in one another, in each and every human being, and enacting justice, both interpersonally and in the world. This time for personal reflection and then time to share that reflection ensures that we are caring for ourselves and our community as fully as possible, focusing not just on the work that we're doing, but how we treat one another in the process of doing that work. It's like an infinity symbol that you saw up there. So, what is praxis? Praxis is the continual process of action and reflection. We begin with the individual level. What were my actions today? How did I show up? Then we get broader, asking, how did we as a community treat one another? These questions and our responses to those questions offer insight into how we can build a more supportive, just community, beginning with each one of us. If this feels a little fuzzy to you at this moment, don't worry, we're actually gonna try it together. So a little bit about evaluation. What is evaluation? So at Life Together, evaluation is generally directed at facilitators. But if you are on a working group or a team where a lot of people are working together and a lot of people are doing different tasks, you might apply evaluation more broadly. You ask the questions, what went well about this time together that we've shared? Those would be your pluses. What would we change for next time we work together? Those would be your deltas. Deltas are not things that were bad, but they're really just things to change, and we believe that distinction is important. And what did we learn? Those would be our key learnings to apply for next time. We believe deeply that it is not only the content of our work together, but the process is also very, very important. We believe that evaluation can help ensure that your team is operating as equitably as possible. It really gives everyone a say about how they want the team to work and how they want the next meeting to go. It's a very impactful way of sharing power in a group. So I want to just give a little bit of a concrete example of how you might use these, because again, it can feel a little bit fuzzy. So say you're at a Monday night vestry meeting in the middle of a contentious budget process. They're never contentious, right? That doesn't ever happen.
Nobody's ever had that experience.
So you're in the middle of talking about the budget, and someone on the vestry brings up a situation where a person who is experiencing homelessness has been sleeping on the porch of the church. Things get very tense very quickly. At the end of the meeting, you might use praxis and evaluation to debrief the conversation. During praxis, you would explore, maybe through journaling or through talking in small groups or in pairs, how you contributed to the discussion and how it aligns with your values. Expanding out a little bit, you might reflect on whether the entire group's conversation reflected the values of the vestry, the larger church. So for evaluation, on the evaluation side, you would reflect on the process and content of the conversation, of what you did together that meeting. Was there an agenda that helped facilitate the discussion, and was it followed? Was there a way that everyone's voice was heard? Was there something about the budget process that was adding extra unnecessary stress? Were there snacks so that no one would be grumpy and hungry? What would you keep the same, and what would you change for next time? That process, I think you might find, could really, really transform the way that a contentious and hard conversation like that could go the next time.
So how do we use this at Life Together? It does end all of our training days in particular. We meet monthly as a full community to do training and spiritual formation work, and this is how we end it, up to an hour, and we'll do it in different formats, through verbal feedback, through share conversations, journaling, all sorts of ways. But most importantly, what it's doing is offering us an opportunity to move just beyond a framework of what did I like or didn't like about this, to a space where we're open to growth and we're building trust among each other. The other thing we found recently, too, in the ways that we've used this, is that it's helped us deepen our anti-racism work as a community, as we've begun to look at power in our space. So asking questions about who has power, who doesn't, how is it being used? Is it being used in ways that build up the people in the community or that exclude and harm people in our community? And that's been a really amazing way for us to have our community grow into this practice and learn from it. So at Life Together, we feel that the best way to learn a practice, though, is not just by talking about it, but by actually trying it on. So we also know it's afternoon, it's after lunch, people might be feeling a little tired, and so we want to shake things up a little bit. So we're going to offer you the opportunity to do just a few minutes of praxis today. And the exercise will be on this question about our ministry time together during the showcase. So from the time you walked through the doors this morning to right now. And the framework we use, that we want to invite you to use, if you're going to take this back to your church or to a group, is to reflect on ways that you've turned toward God and ways that you've turned away from God today, both individually and in community. So if you pick a neighbor, one that maybe you know, maybe you don't, and just have a conversation for a few minutes about these questions here. So for yourself, what were some moments when you turned toward God in today's sessions? And were there moments when you felt yourself turning away from God? And then on the we side, as this community gathers, those of us who are here today, how did we notice different forms of power showing up in the space? And that's neutral, could have been anything. And were they in line with your values? Why or why not? So just take a minute and turn to your neighbor and make some friends. Just wanted to note, as you're thinking about this and debriefing what that experience was like, we'd love to invite you to think about some of these questions. What stood out to you about these questions? Were there things that surprised you? And what might it look like in your context to do something like this or to try something like this on? So be thinking about that as you go about the day and finish out for the rest of the time. Now, we feel like there are different levels at which you could use this, because we know that I said that Life Together spends an hour doing this kind of work at the end of our training days, and that may not be feasible in your context, but there are different steps that you could take to adopt this practice. They're outlined here, everything from just ending your meetings with evaluation, starting there, all the way to really starting to think about those questions of power in your community and talking about them and opening that up. Hannah and I do have a handout which has that information on it, so don't worry, we'll pass it along as we go down and invite you to take that back. It also talks about some other practices that we use that we hope you find helpful in your context.
It can be easy to think that the way we do things doesn't matter as much as what we do, to value outcomes over process. But like a gymnast that practices their landing off a balance beam over and over, practices that attend to the how of how we're working together, done over and over, have the potential to shape our communal life and help us live more fully into our work of justice and our commitment to seeking and serving Christ in all people. This is just one of the practices that we use in Life Together that we've tried here today, and we have many, many more, and we're happy to share those practices with you. That's a very important part of our mission, is sharing out what we do. We'd love to talk more. Please stop by our resource table. And here's a little bit more information up here too. Fellows can always come to your church and give a presentation about some of our practices, or you could host a fellow where you are. So please don't hesitate to be in touch with us to learn more. Thank you so much.